Record. And good morning again, everybody. Oh, switched it through there to another Monday Mornings with Master Wall. I am Brian.
And I am Grant.
He is out there.
I'm here
as
somewhere.
much as somewhere, right? We are here bringing some education, entertainment, engagement in the construction industry, specifically talking about the exterior envelope and what we deal with EIFS and stucco every week. So welcome to the show. This week, we have a great friend, long time with us, John Chamberlin. John is with Georgia Pacific and has been for how many years now, John?
Coming up on 2 years now.
About 2 years. And before that was with, we were talking, Grant and I were talking before that you were with Stowe. So you know the industry well. I appreciate that. Specifically there at Georgia Pacific, your DENS element barrier systems and DENS Defy product line. You've been in the construction industry, and this one specifically your entire career, which when I read that, I was really impressed with that.
It's been quite a journey. Yeah,
that's pretty impressive to know that you're not bouncing around like everybody else to different industries. Air Barriers Association, Building Enclosure Council, and just a plethora of knowledge. We welcome you, John. I'm going to stop sharing. And we kind of have gone through and into this mode of just doing straight up, talking about the topics, generally speaking, overall. And so I think I'll throw it out there in general. And Grant, if you're okay with saying why gypsum, why does that matter? And kind of we can go through everything else from modular stuff we're talking about. But overall, why would you see that gypsum material for stucco EIFS is beneficial?
Yeah, is it okay for me to share a screen, pull something up myself?
Absolutely, whatever you want to do.
Just because it's a funny question. For as long as I've been in the industry, let me know if you can see this. By the way,
absolutely.
There we go. Yeah, gypsum's just kind of been this given, right? You know that you have it on the inside for your drywall. You know you have it on the outside for your sheathing. I geek out about gypsum though. It's a naturally occurring mineral, but you can make a synthetic version, and the why is really because of fire. So gypsum, it has this inherent 21% water in it, and when it's exposed to high heat, that water starts to become steam. So what we end up doing is we protect our building with gypsum products, knowing that if there's a fire on the inside or on the outside, it's going to release this steam, and it's going to produce areas that are of a lower temperature. Gives people time to get out of the building. Gives people time to potentially protect their building as fire comes. But that isn't something that I think the industry as a whole really considers. It's almost taken for granted. Fire does something bad, and that gypsum's a good way to address it. But I think it's a very cool thing. And so gypsum's thought of as the miracle mineral. When you get into the gypsum industry, that's usually day one. Let's go learn about gypsum, the miracle mineral. And you see it applied, right? So at GP, our top 5 questions are always hourly fire rated assemblies, non-combustibility. Gypsum becomes a non-combustible product. The gypsum board products we make are all non-combustible. What's that flame spread, smoke generation look like? You can't beat glass mat gypsum products in those categories. And then relative to what we're talking about, building envelope. So we are very, very, very smart about how fire moves around our buildings, up our buildings these days. And we've got the NFPA, the National Fire Protection Agency, that's kind of given us some guidelines on, here's how assemblies need to be tested. Here's performance that we need to see. Gypsum is a path to success for a lot of those assemblies. Gypsum helps to allow a lot of those assemblies that might have combustible components, perform well enough to meet the criteria, so you can have a good looking building as well as a high performance building.
Mm-hmm. It's funny, you went back, I think you skipped over the one slide of installation, but I had over the weekend, I was talking to somebody about what we were doing here, and this is going to be one of those things. I won't say who it was because I do see that they're on here. But do you guys have a quality assurance? You probably don't have a program for it, but do you see the amount of I'll call it lazy applicators that are doing it out there? Because so many times, right, from our perspective, and you probably dealt with this when you were at the other company, when applicators will come across and be like, these guys are so bad at installing the gyp. I have to patch holes. I'm asking the applicator this or that. Do you guys have kind of Do you see the same thing? I mean, is that kind of what you see out there?
Yeah, we do. I mean, I think that's everyone knows it, right? That's a big problem with the construction industry, and I'm not just going to blame the applicator. I think that we're all aware that there's less labor. There's certainly less experienced, skilled labor than there ever was. When you're more focused on how good the building looks, yeah, you're absolutely going to go as quickly as you can on things that are going to get covered up, like your wall board, like your sheathing. And the problem is that those are critical components of the building that need some attention, need some focus to make sure you have good long-term performance. But like I said, you can't just pin it on the applicator. There's expectations from owners right now that buildings are put up in like light speed time and just record time. And so there is almost this double-edged sword of, hey, I can hang my drywall and I can do a good quality job, but I'm taking so long that I'm being penalized for it. I'm missing my next opportunity. So we absolutely see it. We have a lot of standards that we recommend. We try and help our customers as much as we can with installation guides. Most of the time for gypsum walls, you want to build to a certain fire rating. So that dictates a lot as far as what the products are, what the fastening pattern is going to be. And that's helpful, I think, to the installers to have that guidelines to have to follow. But yeah, for sure, the quality of work is still, it's still a trouble area, I think, for everybody.
Yeah.
And so we offer things like repair guides and technical help as much as we can.
Yeah. You mentioned time and the owner's expectations and what they're kind of pushing through. And I know when we pre-talked about all of this, one of the interesting things that I, as a sales rep, even had not necessarily considered even an issue. I mean, even talking about it to anybody, architecturally or ownership or applicators, is cure time
Right.
of the WRB. And therefore, right, with Masterwall, supporting Den's Element and going into that joint warranty partnership, like we try to do with so many other people, partnerships are huge for us. And so that cure time on the WRB is not as needed, so that you can put Den's Element up on the wall. You can then take the Superior Flash with Masterwall, as you would see the gold stripes in the background on your face there. But yeah, so there's the done with the Superior Flash, and the cure time is going to be a lot faster to be able to put on the board. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned owners want their buildings right away. I think where you've seen a lot of product innovation, where I spend a lot of my time, is how can we bring solutions to our customers who maybe don't have the skill that they used to have, maybe don't have the amount of time that they used to have. And so it is this, better product, better mousetrap to build a building. So as you mentioned, we look at a traditional EIFS assembly. I got one pulled up here from EMA. And yeah, typically you're going to go over your dense glass gold with some sort of liquid WRB. And that liquid WRB is a great product when it's installed well, when it's installed right. Make sure that you've got the proper mill thickness and amount of time for curing, as you mentioned, protection so that nothing is going to interfere with that cure. One of the big enemies of all of these WRB products can be wind and rain when it's a secondary application over the sheathing. You take a lot of that guesswork and a lot of that quality control concern out of the equation when you're using a Den's Element product. So your WRB is inherent in the board already. And then, as you mentioned, you can use an advantage product like a Superior Flash to address the joints and seams. And because that is a moisture cure product, because it's a quick cure product, you're not only saving time, but you're actually reducing your risk. You're reducing the chances of loss of adhesion because it decides to suddenly pick up and have a huge storm or rain. There's less concerns about things like wash off and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a huge thing. Hey, and by the way, for everybody that's on, I mean, we do have the chat window open if you want to ask that way, but you also can raise your hand and we'll reach out to you. I mean, please feel free during any point here, if you want to stop us, to raise your hand in that window there. We will see it and I'll call out for you on there. Kind of moving forward just a little bit there. We talked about connections, the envelope piece, the types of sheathing that are out there that you guys have. But I really would like to know a little bit when it comes to the Den's Element and how that's put together and why, right? I mean, the biggest thing I had heard out there in the field, well, I don't see a layer of a WRB in their system like this one is, and they bring up a competitor.
Right.
But you then explained it a little bit different to me on the uniqueness of Den's element.
Yeah, no, awesome question. So if you think about kind of how things have evolved with WRB, right? We got to the 80s. GP didn't invent gypsum board products, but we feel like we got pretty close to best in class, to making them great with Den's Glass Gold in the 1980s. And really, that was, hey, if you use a paper-faced gypsum, you're addressing fire, but now you've opened up some vulnerabilities to water. With glass mat gypsum and with Den's Glass Gold, we were able to start offering something that was much, much better in terms of resisting bulk water, much, much better in terms of resisting delamination, but it wasn't good enough to be a WRB. So you kind of saw this evolution of WRB technologies, first with wraps, then with self-adhered products, thicker mill products, where they're going over the Den's Glass. And, you know, the gypsum sheathing, the Den's Glass in that case, is still doing a lot of the heavy lifting. It's still holding out a lot of water, but it's not quite enough, not taking it quite across that finish line. Doing well enough that you start to see products like the Roller Shield product that can go on at a thinner mill thickness, still get good results, good ability to hold out water as WRB. And you know what we said was that makes all the sense in the world. But why? And is that really what's necessary? That secondary step. If our product in Den's Glass Gold is already pretty close, isn't there a way to innovate and make it better? And so that's really what Den's element was. You know, I think about it, and actually, I liked your example. For anybody that's actually looking at me talking instead of the screen, you know, Brian, you've got layer 1 being the sheathing and layer 2 being the WRB going on top.
Right.
What we said was let's really bring those together, and you know, we were able to pull from similar technologies. You see anti-porosity additives in products like concrete. It's the same thing essentially. We've made the WRB inherent in the board itself, so that bulk water is stopping at that glass mat surface. Any areas where water could have penetrated before, pores, things like that, those have all been sealed up. But the glass mat has also been married to the core in a way that you've got really good quality control with the Den's element. You're not worried about a top layer losing adhesion or peeling off or anything like that.
Yeah. You know, it's funny you mentioned just time and time again, as week after week that we're doing this and we're on here doing these shows, it amazes me, and it shouldn't probably amaze me, but how much science goes behind all of that we're doing on the building enclosure, and how important that is, especially consider the water intrusion or water infiltration, or even just the buildup of moisture in a wall system accounts for 70 to 80% of litigation in construction.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just interesting to me how much science is behind all this that most people, I think in the field especially, don't think of. We had it with the finishes. We had it with Abba last week when he was on, and even here. So speaking innovation, speaking technology and all that kind of stuff, one of the places that I had seen you speak was specifically on modular panel systems and things like that moving forward.
Yeah.
I shared last week that I was surprised that there was a 1970s, Disney hotel resort that was modularly built in the 70s. Now, personally, I will say I'm skeptical about the whole modular panelization systems of buildings. I know Marriott's done a couple of things out there with it. I don't think it'll last, but I think that's because the construction industry is so much on hands. But just speak a little bit to that whole modular and panel systems of what you see happening, why there is value in it, versus maybe even some non-value in certain areas. But what is your experience there?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I think all of us are trying to solve more or less the same problems, but from different directions. So I talk about product innovation and trying to make more of a dummy-proof product, more of a bulletproof product. You know, modular is kind of the same. It's dealing with the same issues, which is, you know, buildings are expected to perform better than they've ever been expected to perform before. The timelines to construct these things are much more constricted than they ever were because of the owner's expectations, and the labor's not out there to accomplish both of those things. So modular is another path where you're seeing people taking traditional methods and bringing them under the roof. And there's a lot of benefits to it. You know, it's safer in a lot of ways. It's cleaner. You don't have to worry about the elements, so you can construct pretty much year round. And then once that's all put together in a shop, you can take it to a site and get it all erected pretty quickly. And all of that's great. Where you and I talked about maybe some failings is there hasn't been a lot of change to the actual construction itself. It's really going to a site and taking those practices and now bringing it under a roof. And so if you think about, we deal quite a lot, I'm sure you guys deal quite a lot with exterior wall panels. You look at a standard panelizer, they've got, I don't know, 100,000 square feet of floor space, and they're typically building their wall panels in a horizontal orientation. So I'm going to fill up 100,000 square feet of floor space with wall that's laying on its back. And if I'm using traditional methods, that means, got my framing, got my sheathing in place, going to go on with some sort of liquid WRB, and then I'm stuck. I've got maybe there are things that can be done, heaters or things like that can speed it up, but this same thing, this cure time, that becomes a constraint in terms of productivity. That becomes a bottleneck. And so you are seeing some really interesting things happening in modular where maybe they're starting to use more automation. Maybe they're starting to use different materials. We have seen a big uptick in dense element in modular because of this exact issue where, okay, dense element doesn't require a liquid coating to cure on top, and therefore you're actually giving back capacity to the panel shop. You're giving them hours or even days back in their process. So a shop that might be able to produce 3 million feet in a year can now produce 4.5, 5 million feet in a year. And they're able to focus on those things that the owners are wanting, like the higher performance. They're able to spend more of their time really bringing value to what's being constructed in modular space, as opposed to just worrying about timelines and making sure that everything is going out as quickly as possible. And it's not a new practice, as you mentioned. There's a lot of examples of modular and offsite construction going back into the 70s and 60s, post World War II, where you had kit houses going up all over the place. But it's really kind of come back in full force now, I do think, to address the labor issues and the performance requirements. So
Sure.
it's been interesting to watch.
Yeah. One of the questions there, maybe you see it on the chat, is, what really, a little bit more on the difference between Den's element and Den's glass gold, and really the difference there, so that people would see that main difference there.
Yeah. I mean, the big difference is for sure that the Den's element has been modified. We use a proprietary process called aquacore technology, but it is very much like what I described with an antiporosity additive for concrete. We use the aquacore technology in the slurry itself. So when we are producing a Den's element board, it is a different process than producing a Den's glass board. The result is a board that, end of the day, holds out water more effectively, but things that you'll notice are a blue dye, kind of an indicator that the aquacore technology is there. The mat is really, really married to the slurry, fused in a way that you'll see even beyond what you see with Den's glass. And then, of course, the third-party testing we'll do side by side. Den's element was designed to meet AC 212, which is the acceptance criteria for a liquid coating as a WRB over a sheathing. Den's glass can't pass those tests, but Den's element exceeds them, and it is through this aquacore technology process that I'm talking about.
What's funny is I think too, when it comes to a lot of this, I talk about it when I'm out in the field myself towards my competitors, let's say, right? Where, somebody comes up to me and says, hey, I need to use brand X. I'm more than willing to concede and understand the process that, hey, I know why you have to use it. I would love to have the job, but I can appreciate this company that's there. They make a good product. They're there and they're going to help you. And I understand it. And then there's those that are out there that are, not quite much there with us. And so in the same way with you, understanding each other's products in that way sometimes really helps to know, hey, yeah, we meet up to there. We understand it. We are all in third-party testing. We want the industry, and that's the whole reason why I did this, right, is the building enclosure industry to be better as a group. That even though we're competing against somebody, that's okay. They're a great guy. We can compete against them. And whoever gets the job, we still want that job to be done well. With that even said, again, if there's any questions, please keep it coming as far as there or raising your hand. Let me know what those are. But one thing that I, again, too, thought was interesting was you guys also have Forcefield. And I
Hmm.
only bring this up because, again, I hear it on the architectural side when they say, well, I can't use a gypsum sheathing because it needs to be structural.
Right.
And that there are, again, I'm not going to mention name, but there is a company out there that is a structural sheathing that has a WRB in it that we see all the time all over the place. But to give GP the props to saying you also have Forcefield. Tell me a little bit about Forcefield so that we know about it.
Sure, absolutely. Yes, Forcefield is an OSB-based exterior sheathing product, also an integral WRB product. So there's an overlay in that case. It's not inherent in the board itself, but there's an overlay laminated to the board that makes the board act as a WRB. And yeah, there's other products like that. I think GP is probably the only company that offers both, where we've got a gypsum and we've got a wood-based. And the wood-based being Forcefield, we see mostly in single family, in multifamily, a good amount of 5/1. What we're very proud of is our ability to transition from one to the other. So if you've got a 5/1 with a gypsum sheathing on the bottom floor and you're going wood sheathing on top, we can do the whole thing with an integral WRB sheathing with our Den's element and our Forcefield combined. Those two have good tested transitions across each other, and so we're able to offer a single package. Yeah, it's exciting, as you said, to see the industry as a whole start to move in these ways where we're bringing better performance, we're bringing better quality control through product innovation. Of course, you want to have competitors, so it's good to have competition with some high quality stuff out there.
Yeah.
And we're very, very happy to be included in some of those conversations, especially with the integral WRB sheathings.
Yeah,
Hey,
absolutely.
hey, hey, Brian.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey. So, John, obviously, GP and Masterwall shared a good, strong relationship for a long time.
Mhm.
Can you kind of talk about the advantage, with Masterwall kind of jumping on board early to say, yeah, we'll do a joint warranty program with GP with Den's element? Kind of what advantage that gives your team when you go into an architect and they're looking for EIFS on a project?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it is a question. Den's element. We're on over 500 completed projects since we launched in 2015. I mean, we're growing very quickly. And one of the big questions that we get from architects is, I'm using cladding X. Is it okay to have Den's element underneath? In a lot of cases, that conversation has now changed to, I'm using Den's element. What's the cladding that should go on top of it, or can I use this cladding on top of it? And in the case of EIFS, it's typically what's the right EIFS manufacturer? Who do you work well with? Masterwall, you guys were very quick to kind of recognize, hey, there is some value being brought to our customers here, and here's a way that we can approach it. So yeah, when it comes to an EIFS system and that request of who's the EIFS system to use, we point out the technical literature that you guys have put together. We point out the kind of collaborative things that you guys have done with us, where you're saying, use the Den's element as the WRB, as the board. We've got our system using our liquid flashing, our adhesive, and EIFS on top of that. And I think it's brought a lot of value to the customers in the sense it's path of least resistance. It's easy to think out, and you guys always carry it across the finish line as far as taking care of the customer. So it's much better for the customer in my mind than a lot of the back and forth. We do absolutely have the EIFS companies that say, if you want our full warranty, you've got to use our WB product, and I understand that there's money on the table, but at the same time, that creates complexity for the customer, and that makes their jobs harder. So I think you guys have done great at looking at the customer first and saying, how can we bring value here? And so, yeah, there's been a very good partnership between Masterwall and Georgia Pacific as a result. And we see that continuing to grow as people continue to use the EIFS and specify EIFS and continue to adopt Den's element at a faster and faster pace.
Yeah, Grant and John, either one can take as far as describing maybe the warranty, Grant, a little bit, and again, maybe John on some of this, and the length of time that looks like. I mean, as far as what that warranty really looks like. I mean, from what everything on the big scope of the whole thing, 30,000-foot view, it's a full system warranty from ins and outs. But is there any other specifics, length of time, and describing that warranty, if you were to said?
Yeah, I'll take it for just the front end of it. So obviously, GP manufactures the board. Masterwall offers a liquid flashing product, which is a single component product called Superior Flash. So that's used in place of the Densify with our EIFS system. And so from there, you're just doing a typical standard adhesively attached EIFS system over that DENS element with the Superior Flash, and we offer a 12-year warranty term with that. If John wants to expand on their side of that warranty, that's fine. But Masterwall is offering a drainability warranty. It kind of falls in line with our other EIFS warranties.
Yeah, I think, I mean, you guys have got the more progressive approach right now because you own the system warranty. And really that's what I think owners are looking for is I want the cladding manufacturer to have the whole system. What we offer that's outside of you guys is, you know, our DENS element with the Densify liquid flashing will act as the WRB and the air barrier, will act as a drainage plane in assemblies where there's good drainage design and constructed. But we don't take responsibility for the things beyond that. And so a typical EIFS conversation is, yes, we've got your WRB and your air barrier. We're going to give you 12 years behind EIFS. And then from the adhesive out, it's on the EIFS guys. Whereas you guys make it a much, much simpler conversation. Say, you know, this is our system incorporating the DENS element board. And then of course we're offering a warranty for our WRB board still. We don't have the whole system because you guys have taken that over.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, no, just one more thing on partnerships and being involved in the industry. Obviously, there's a wide range of people here on these calls. Just so contractors can understand, John, you're very involved with ABAA as well. Mm-hmm. So kind of from your perspective, why being involved in organizations, not just from a manufacturing perspective, but just as being a part of the construction industry, why being involved in trade organizations is important?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is this shared experience, shared learnings, right? The ABAA is made up of just incredibly intelligent people from across the industry. A lot of those people are working for product manufacturers like we are, and so it's an opportunity to kind of come in, maybe not make product specific recommendations, but make recommendations based on our experience and our knowledge that ultimately leads to a better building. You know, I same thing for our building envelope council or BEC. Atlanta's has been a little bit lax in the last year, but you know, you're coming in and you're having these discussions and you're coming out of it knowing a lot of things that you didn't know that are ultimately going to lead to better products, better design, better construction. And as much as the built environment really is literally all around us, but kind of all consuming in our economics and in our world, it really is a pretty small group of people that contribute to that knowledge base and to that product base. So, you know, we all have to be speaking with one another, learning from one another for things to get better, for the performance to improve, for quality to improve, for construction to be able to hit some of these very difficult asks like the speed, like the size. Yeah, it's critical that we're talking to one another.
And that's why I love that part of it. Like you said, talking to each other in the industry. And I think that's where these associations that we're all a part of, whether it's ABAA or EMA or the SMA or whatever it might be, as a core, getting other manufacturers and applicators and contractors involved to give us those ideas, right? Like in the beginning, you know, damaged sheathing that's on the wall. How do you stop it? Well, you know what, as we all talk about it and we all really discuss those type of things, where do we see those problems? Oh, in this area, great. Let's make sure we get that information out to the GC or to the applicator to do a little bit better at that specific area so that things don't happen. Or just collaboration, I think it overall helps that building enclosure as a total package to make it look well. I'm going to just finish out the 11 o'clock hour to make sure everybody knows, hey, 11 o'clock, we try to stop on time. Next week, there is no show. Next week is Memorial Day. I hope everybody enjoys and will go to a beach or go on vacation somewhere and do something out and get the economy going again. Let's get moving and on the tourism side. But no show next week. I may, just depending on where I am, pop in and have something out there, generally speaking, but not an official show. We will pick it back up in June. In June, we have a great lineup already. Stumming Quickcrete. Dale Nails will be coming on. to talk a little bit about the hard coat stucco area of things. And then we have Craig Wetmore with York Flashing. He's going to be talking about flashing and terminations, and then talking about industry, like we were saying, EMA. Scott and the team from EMA, the EIFS Industry Managers Association, will be coming on, and the SMA, the Stucco Manufacturing Association, with Mark Fowler, will be coming on also. So officially, I appreciate, John, all that you do with GP and with Masterwall, and appreciate your time. Again, we will leave this open for a little bit longer just to kind of talk, and you guys can all start your videos and such like that. But thank you very much for your time, John.
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate you having me on.